zone, the homeowner's best friend.
So the first segment we talked about edible landscape kind of from a 30,000 foot view, the big picture, the concept of it. And we just said, we got to start by mapping the property and finding our microclimates, following the sun path. Well, taking that to the next level, once we have that charted out, do I get like a list of options of here's all the different types of plants you can put on and what kind of produce and food you can produce, and then let's pick which one of these are most important to you?
Exactly. So part of that assessment process is that we give you the results and we go through the results. We identify what your yard really could produce for itself with all the different market or the microclimates taken into consideration. We also want to overlay that with what your family would need, what your household would need. And so we say, okay, here's our estimation on the type of produce, how much of what you're probably going to need as a household, and how many square feet we really need to dedicate to you and your family to get you what you need. And then we look at, okay, well, here's the potential market value for the rest of your property and what it could produce in terms of poundage, possible value. And so we can look at that and really turn you into essentially a micro farm. And from that, then we want to then match that to the market, like what market zone are you in? Are you in kind of our Scottsdale market zone? Are you kind of in the Southeast, so like the Gilbert Farmers Market Zone, the Sun City Market Zone, the Queen Creek Market Zone? So we're looking at market zones that are within a 15-mile radius of where you are. And so that's all part of what Utopian Harvest helps align you with. And that's part of the assessment, is to really figure out, well, what's in your market area? What's the market demand? What type of production could you produce? What CSAs you might be able to get connected to? And a CSA is like a community supported agriculture. So that means you essentially can get some guaranteed revenue for your property relative to what you can produce there. And that's all part of that assessment. And so it's identifying now, all right, what are we going to grow? And then how do we design that? So the next step really after that assessment, that the results meeting of all its potential, water resourcing, soil resourcing, all those things, and even the design style. Like, what's your design style that you like? Because we want to be cognizant of the design style. We don't want your yard to look like a farm. We want it to look like, the Queen Creek Botanical Garden. If you want a Japanese style, we want it to look Japanese. If you want English style, we want it to look English style. If you want Tuscan, we want it to look Tuscan. We want it to fit the design palette you want, but still produce. And so that's what we decide and really figure out from your property, from that initial consult after the results. And then next phase is like, okay, are you ready to hit the design phase? Because now we got to intentionally design it, integrating in your fruit tree layers, your herbs, your perennials, and then your production spaces, which are rotational annual type cropping. And how's that all going to work together? The irrigation system, how does that integrate? If we're working in some rainwater harvesting or gray water harvesting from your property, we want to design all that in very intentionally. It's not just we're throwing up some raised beds and or putting in some farm rows. It's like, no, that's not how we work. We work to make your yard fit even your HOA if you're living in an HOA environment. This all started, agriscaping started in an HOA, and I should probably bring it up. The 9/11 is always, for me, an anniversary date, because that was the day that really the concept of agriscaping became a reality for me. And it started there on September 11th, 2001. That was the day I signed on my very first house. And it was in a very strict HOA. And this is my first house. Me and my wife were signing that day. We're like, what are we doing? Is this the worst mistake of our lives? The world is coming to an end, and we're putting ourselves in $120,000 of debt for our first house. Boy, I wish I could buy houses for that price now, right? And so we were pretty freaked out. And everything was shut down for 2 weeks. And on that day, though, I looked in my yard and I said, I got to find a way to grow food. And the only place that I could tell I could grow it was my front yard. And I knew the HOA was strict. So I was like, I'm going to have to find a way to grow food and they don't notice. So it's got to look good. And so we want that for you. We want that for your neighborhood. We want it to look good enough that your HOA is not going to complain.
The passerby wouldn't realize that this is an edible landscape.
Correct. Because once you start putting farm rows in, some people say, well, a farm looks beautiful. It's like, yeah, well, not all HOAs would agree with you on that. And not all municipalities will agree with you on that. They might have city ordinances that might overtake the other ones. So there's some issues that you might run into.
A farm row ready for harvest looks great.
Yes, but
farm row 2 weeks after harvest.
No,
not so good.
Right. And so how do you rotate those crops so that it continually looks good? I mean, we were working with some clients earlier today, and it's like, well, what's going to look like, in between? It's like, well, we're already growing, and this is kind of a cool little thing to think about. We're already growing the stuff that needs to be planted, like seed planting. We are already growing them for you. So you're not going to end up planting seeds. You're actually planting transplants. And so we're not harvesting the other stuff out for a few more weeks, but the seeds are already starting for their yard. It's already at the nursery. They're already growing for them. And so we let the other things finish out. So as we harvest those out, we can plant right back in. So you're not having 2 months of waiting for something to look like it's there. It's like it's within a week. You've got something already there, or sometimes same day. And so an elegant edible landscape for you that also integrates into what you need to make it work.
Rosie on the house, every Arizona homeowner's best friend.